Welcome to Creatively Optimized, the podcast for service businesses ready to shine online. I'm Jenny Belanger, the founder of Jenny B Designs, a web design studio that builds strategic and beautiful websites that are designed to book you ideal clients and make you money. With over 10 years of growing my own design business, I'm here to share tips to creatively optimize your business. Get ready to learn web design strategies for high converting websites, digital marketing tactics to reach ideal customers, and systems to simplify operations. If you're ready to blend creativity and strategy, you're in the right place. Join me on this journey to creatively optimize your unique business. Let's do this. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Today, I'm doing my first interview, my first guest podcast episode, and I'm so excited because I have Claire Ransom, the founder of Aloha Life Digital. She is a Boston-based SEO agency, and she is an award-winning entrepreneur with over 18 years business experience working in the UK, Europe, and the US. She has been honing her skills as an SEO expert for over 10 years and has worked at some of the world's leading publishers as well as a few fast-moving startups. And she even built a business of her own to attract over 45,000 organic visitors each month. I am super pumped to share this conversation with you. I partner with Claire on a lot of my website projects, especially for clients who want to have ongoing SEO work done. Claire is fantastic and really a whiz at what she does. And I thought, as you're going to see, our conversation is going to share a little bit about how you can just make Google love you a little bit more and get a little bit more traffic to your website, and some simple things that you can do to see results. So without further ado, here is my guest expert, Claire, chatting about SEO today with me. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Creatively Optimized. I want to welcome Claire. Thank you for joining me. I thought maybe we could start and learn a little bit about your journey, perhaps sharing a little bit about where you started and how you've come to find yourself where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast in the first place. It's a huge honor to be here. So, yeah, I'm very happy to share a little bit about what I know about SEO and how it might be able to help your listeners. So my own journey with SEO kind of took a slightly convoluted route. I didn't plan to become an SEO expert. It just kind of happened in the course of pursuing a career that I was really passionate about. I worked in publishing for a really long time. Some of the really biggest and biggest and in my opinion, most reputable publishers in the UK. So I worked for a company called Oxford University Press. And as part of many, many things that I did there, I ended up being put as a business analyst onto one of their projects that was really high profile at the time. And it was one of the largest websites in the UK. They got 11 million visitors per month. At that point in time, it's probably even bigger by now. So it's just absolutely huge amount of traffic. And because it was so big, they Google took a significant interest in that particular website and kind of became really involved with in-house teams. So I got to hear a lot of really good advice, SEO advice, firsthand from the Google team and also from people who had previously worked for Google but were now part of the team that I was on. And all of that advice just really sounded really sensible and, just the kind of way that you would want to build a business. So all the messages that I was getting were, make sure your content is high quality. Google cares about high quality content. It wants to promote sites that are really reputable, that are an authority in their area, that demonstrate massive, massive expertise. And if you imagine the whole weight of a publishing house behind it, that is huge depth of knowledge and years and centuries of research have gone into that. So that's kind of how I got started. It was kind of by accident. I was pulled into this project that I didn't really know very much about. And I just kind of ended up having this fast track to learn about SEO. Fast forward a few years, I left that company, moved on to a different job, still in publishing, still in a career that I really cared very much about. And eventually kind of moved on to start my own business. And as part of that business, I started an e-commerce company, which I ran for 6 years. And although SEO was never like the number one strategy that we used to attract customers to that business, it was from day one, because I know content and I can write content and I can train people to write content. It was a really foundational part of what we did. So we wrote a massive amount of really authoritative content and high quality content, and we just pushed it onto the website, not with the intention of driving traffic, but with the intention of being genuinely useful to our customers. That was the sole purpose. We knew that there was an education piece, there was a gap in knowledge between the product that we had and our customers. So that information was all trying to fill that. But because it was presented in such a way, and I just tried to make it as useful and as Google friendly as possible, it ended up gaining like absolutely massive amounts of traffic. So, at various points, whilst I was running that company, we saw over 120,000 visitors a month. And regularly, we got to like 45,000 was kind of our steady state for organic traffic. So we had, vast amounts of traffic coming to this website, all thanks to SEO. So obviously, content and publishing is something that I know a lot about and care about. And I proved to myself through that process of building that business that I knew how to attract traffic and make sales as a result of that traffic getting to that website in the first place. So now what I'm trying to do with my current company, which is Aloha Life Digital, is to just kind of take all that knowledge, package it up, and make it work really hard for people. So that was a bit of a long-winded way of saying that's how I got here, but that's how I got here.
I love that. You just kind of learned everything in your past business experience. You were kind of in the deep of it all, and you figured out what worked. You got results, and now you want to bring it to your clients, to your agency. I really love that.
Yeah, and I think it's a little unusual. I know
Mm.
it's unusual for an agency owner to have that first-hand experience of actually having built a massive SEO website. And then kind of, that first-hand knowledge is not common. So I like to think that it gives me a huge amount of confidence in what I can do and how I can help people.
Yeah, no, I agree. You definitely are different than any other SEO agency owner I've ever met. And I really love your philosophy and all that you've learned throughout your experiences over the years. And excited to hear what you're going to share with us and help other small businesses grow.
And I love seeing how powerful it can be for them as well.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Maybe from the top, maybe a little bit about what actually is search engine optimization and maybe how it can have an impact on a small business, either good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely right. Start from the very beginning, and perhaps should have said that at the very start. SEO stands for search engine optimization, as you correctly state, and it basically means how do you get found in Google? So Google is a search engine. There are obviously other search engines, but we all know that the vast majority of search is done through Google. So when I'm talking about search, I'm almost always talking about Google. I think it's something like 83% of all searches are done through Google. So anyone who's searching for anything is usually using Google. So a lot of the techniques that I use are to understand what Google is looking for. So that's my job, is to understand what Google is looking for and make a website really presentable to Google. So there's a really clear line of communication between Google and the website. So Google knows what that website is about, and the information on the website is presented in a way that it can easily understand. And therefore, when somebody searches for something that is related to that website, that they present that website as one of the results. So that's, very abridged sense. That is, getting people found in Google, getting businesses found in Google is all about, is what SEO is all about.
Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit more about the good impact or the bad impact SEO could have for a business.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that I can think of a situation where SEO is for a business. Yeah. There are definitely ways where it can be more leveraged. So, for example, sometimes you might have a business that has a huge amount of traffic, and yet that traffic doesn't necessarily convert to sales. So there are when you're thinking about search, there are different levels of intent when somebody's searching for something, and you have to make sure that the level of intent that your ideal customer has, and the point at which, the point of the journey which they're at is going to match up with the search terms that your website is ranking for. So having a vast amount of traffic to any website is only going to be an advantage. There's not going to be a penalty for having a huge amount of traffic, because Google looks at the amount of traffic a website gets and it sees that as credibility, trustworthiness, usefulness, relevance, and all of those things are the things that it's looking to promote. So if you have a website that's got a vast amount of traffic and yet it's not converting, that's not a bad thing. It might just be that there are a few tweaks that you can make to your own website to unlock that traffic, which is going to the website, and to really funnel those people into the higher intent, the purchasing kind of mindset, or attract those mindset customers. So the two things really work very well together. There's the high intent people who are perhaps looking for something like dentist near me, or web designer near me, or attorney near me, or in a local area. Then just kind of matching up high intent search plus all the useful background information, the authority that you might already have on your site, making sure that those two things work really well together.
Yeah, that's great. I get that. You can't have too much traffic. And I guess if you're getting traffic that's not converting, then you kind of need to make a few website tweaks to kind of pull it all together. And that's where I come into the process and how I've worked with you in the past, making sure that the traffic that people are actually getting on their websites is driving to those conversions and to those sales.
Yeah, absolutely. It does happen quite often that you'll you and I have seen a couple of examples where somebody has a great website and they've put a vast amount of effort and energy into putting together really fantastic, really dominating or authoritative blog, and yet it doesn't necessarily always immediately convert into sales or leads or inquiries. So that is such an important part of the process for me. It's great to have the traffic, but let's make that traffic work for you. So yeah, you're right. It's never going to be a bad thing to have loads of traffic. It's already a huge advantage, and time well spent from a business owner's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about it. The title of this episode, How to Get Google to Love Your Website and Get You Loads of Traffic. Let's jump right in.
Yeah, well, yeah, I love the question. And yes, absolutely. You can get Google to love your business. And I read something recently and just really resonated with me. Google will only love your business when everybody else already does. So, and I was like, that just takes everything back to the heart of Google's philosophy. They want stuff to be useful and relevant. And they want content to be accessible. So if I were a business owner and I were creating a website or a blog from scratch, the first thing I would do in order to make sure that I can appear in search is make sure that my offering is so clear and so well communicated to a real person on my website. So that's exactly where you come in, and what you're so brilliant at, Jenny. It's making sure that the navigation on a website is really clear and intuitive. It's making sure there's not too many items in the navigation menu so people don't feel overwhelmed. Makes the choices, the path of the user journey on each website really, a user doesn't have to make too many difficult decisions. It just flows so beautifully. And in building for human first, and in making a site really user-friendly for a human being, for somebody who's in a hurry, who's looking quickly for information, who's short of time, you automatically almost, I'll say almost because there are a few technical things that, that come in handy. You almost by default build a site that is well optimized for search. So if you can nail the navigation, if you can have intuitive navigation, if you can have a good user experience on your website that's not overfilled with many options and pages that don't link to other pages, that's just a really clear, intuitive, comfortable user journey, then that is the number one step. So make it really clear to a human being what it is your business is, So have the words, have the services that your business is known for on your website. So if, for example, let's go for dentist, because that's a nice, easy example. If you're a dentist and you are based in a particular town, let's use Boston. Have the word dentist and have the word Boston on your website. Make it so clear that this is your industry. And then under your services page, list all the different services that you offer as a dentist. List whether you include cosmetic dentistry, whether you include things like braces. Thank you. List all these different services on your website and make it really clear what somebody can expect from you. Because that's so useful from a user point of view. That's what somebody's looking for in a hurry. And if you can get all of that information, it makes it not only clear to a human being, but by default, clear to Google. And that is the number one thing that you can do to get Google to love your business. It's make that communication so clear. And once you've got to that point, then you just back it up with lots and lots of authoritative information. Make it very clear to Google that you are an expert in your field. Write blog posts about industry topics, about services you provide, about common questions that customers have, and make sure that information is on your website. So yeah, all about clarity of communication, and Google will love your business, but only once your customers already love your business.
I love that saying. And it's funny, or maybe not funny because this is why we work so well together, but your top tips are the same things that I say as a website designer. Your top navigation has to be simple. I always say to my clients, 5 options or less if possible. And then that hero, that above the fold section when someone lands on your website, you want it to be clear and succinct and state what you offer and how you help someone in clear and simple terms. I always say clear over clever. It's really important. And what's interesting to me, and it's really great, is that those tips that I share as a website designer to help your website attract your ideal clients and make you money actually align in what Google is looking for and help you rank in search engine optimization.
Yeah, absolutely. User navigation and the usability of a site is so fundamental to good SEO. So yeah, you're absolutely there already.
Yeah, that's great. So that's the nav and the hero section. You mentioned blogging. So let's talk about it. How often do you think someone should be blogging to actually be able to catch Google's attention and to make it worthwhile their effort and work for them on the SEO front?
Oh, that's such a good question, and such a difficult question to answer as a business owner. My answer and Google's answer is always going to be the more content that you can publish, the better you are going to do in search. If you can publish an article every single day, do it. However, I absolutely fully realize how completely unrealistic that is for the majority of business owners. Almost nobody, unless you have a team around you, significant team around you, nobody's going to be publishing content every day. A lot of people are not. So my advice to business owners is publish as much content as you can consistently commit to. So if that for you and for your business is 1 blog post a week, that is excellent. Because over time, at the end of a year, that's 52 blog posts, which is huge. And by the end of 2 years, it's over 100. And that becomes a sizable site. Getting 100 articles or 100 pages on a site, all of a sudden that becomes like a substantial site. And if you continue that for 10 years, well, that's even more substantial. And SEO does compound over time. So if you work on and produce 50 articles in year 1, by year 5, those articles that you produced in the first year are going to be even more powerful. So it's not like the power drops off over time. It actually compounds and they become more powerful for you and your business. So this is why SEO is very often a kind of a long-term game. But the more consistent you can be, the better. If you can do once a week, great. That is excellent. If you can do once a month, that is also fine. And I would encourage everyone, who is able to do that, to just do that, because over time, it really adds such a differentiator. I see so many sites that are just homepage, about page, services, contact, and that's it. And that's all the content ever on that website. If you compare that to a competitor who's got 10 or 20 blog articles, that competitor is almost, 90% of the time going to be doing better in search just thanks to 20 blog articles. So it's really worth adding content, not just from an SEO perspective, but also because it adds so much reassurance to your audience, and more information about your own expertise as a business.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of times I work with clients and they don't feel as though they need a blog. They feel as though they're not going to be publishing content regularly. It just feels like a lot of work and it's just kind of overwhelming and too much. And I always suggest that we just build it and start small, and if you can commit to writing 4 articles a year, 4 blog posts a year, that's something. And then from there, you can grow. But as long as you have it, you can grow with it and get all of the other benefits of having a blog. So I always suggest that we add it to all my clients' projects and just start small.
Absolutely. Yeah, I often look at blogs because I want to know like how much in-depth knowledge. I mean, obviously I'm approaching things from my own like SEO knowledge, but I also, knowing that I do like to dig in and see like what level of depth of knowledge does this person or this business, like how careful I think it tells me a lot about how careful or how thorough somebody is going to be with their work that I place with them or that I hire them to do. So yeah, I think there's huge benefits, not just for SEO, but also from a reassurance standpoint for customers.
And it's just worth a mention just to touch on, but I find a lot of people tend to put a lot of effort and time into social media, and it just doesn't last as long as your website does. Your website and your blog is forever, and it can just compound over time. So I always encourage my clients and anyone out there to always be working on your website because investing more on social media doesn't always return the results that we're looking for. But when you invest in your website and your blog, then you absolutely can gain those long-term results, especially when you have your blog posts optimized for search engine optimization, like you are talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I'm actually experimenting with at the moment is recycling anything that I put on social media onto my website. So I'm like, it's not going to be exactly the same format. I've already spent the time creating that content for social media. So why don't I just put it on my website? It's not going to be the most in-depth or the most authoritative article that I have, but it's so quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's on my website and it's done. So that might be something that some of your listeners might want to experiment with as well.
So I have a question when it comes to that. People tend to ask me all the time, do I need a certain number of words for a blog post to actually see results with SEO?
That is a great question. Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that I think about often as well. The more words you can have as a general rule, the better. However, always approaching this with the same caveat of realism, right? We know people don't have enough time to write 2,000 word articles about every topic they put on social media. The business that I built, my e-commerce business, and this is kind of anecdotal, all of the SEO articles that we put on that website were between, actually not all, some of them were much longer, but as a general rule, we were putting fact sheets on this website. It was a fairly standard format, lots of headings, so you would guide the reader, and each of those I think was about 300 to 500 words. So really short, like really short. And if you read, and that was the website that got, we got 250 terms into the first position on Google without even trying. Like this was not the goal of that website, but we got into the first position on Google and we were getting thousands of hits per month for individual pages, and 45,000 organic visitors a month by through that method. So just using 300 to 500 words articles is sufficient. It doesn't need to be these mega articles. However, it depends on the topic. You really, really have to think about who is your audience? What kind of information are they looking for? Are they looking for long, in-depth articles, or are they looking for like a bite-sized nugget that they can just scan in like 20 seconds, take what information they need and go? Because what Google is looking to surface is the most relevant response to a particular search query. If somebody Googles, for example, how to care for a string of hearts plant, that might mean that they're looking for very detailed instructions about how to repot, how to water, how to care for that plant at every step of its life. They might be looking for very, very in-depth information, or they might be looking for abridged highlights. So what you really have to understand is, and try to understand and preempt as a business owner with knowledge of your own audience, is what is my audience looking for? And you write for your audience, not for Google. So that's the thing that I think I'm trying to say here is write for your audience, not for Google. Don't be dictated by Google how many words you should have on a page. If your article is done at 300 words and you don't feel like there's any more benefit, stop at 300 words. And if you have to write 1,800 words to get your point across, to answer the question that your potential searcher is looking for, write 1,800 words.
Yes, so good. It's about humanizing the whole process, writing from one human to another. And one of my favorite quotes, progress over perfection. It doesn't need to be perfect. We just need to get something out there and the results will come. And we don't have to worry about every single little piece of this blog post being perfect in order to get our work out there.
It's always done better than perfect, 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And you can always go back, right? This is the great thing about digital marketing and websites. They're dynamic. They're constantly moving. You can change it anytime. So if you want to go back and develop a blog article that you felt was too short or your people are sending you questions on, you can do that anytime.
And I'm sure that's when working with someone like you comes into play as well. If someone already has existing content and they want a little help reworking it to make it work a little bit better and perform a little bit better on Google, then that's kind of where you come in.
It's always this 1% increment, right? You know this, from cycling, this is where it was developed. But everything in SEO, because there are so many factors, there's no one switch that you can switch on and say, right, my SEO is done forever. I never need any more SEO input. It's the same with marketing. It's the same with like a lot of the digital marketing world. It's always about how do we make this thing a bit better, and then once we pair it with this thing, which is also 1% better, the effects compound, and you start to see better results thanks to those changes.
Yeah, that's so good. And so, do you see any big mistakes people sometimes make when it comes to search engine optimization that they might not be aware of or that they should become aware of and know not to do?
Gosh, yeah, where do I start? Yes, I see more bad SEO than I see good SEO. It's very rare that I go into a site and I'm impressed with what has been done to a site. Unless somebody who's got a really authoritative blog and has written extensive numbers of articles, that is like the number one thing that people do right. Even if you know nothing about SEO but you're an authority on your topic, that is the number one thing that I see people with no knowledge doing so well. I'm always so impressed with photographers who've got hundreds of blog posts, for example, on how to pose for this type of shoot, or what kind of clothes to wear for this particular example, how to make your headshot looking absolutely incredible, or kind of considerations you might want to have ahead of a shoot. Things like that, like answering the questions or preempting the questions. In terms of bad SEO, there are quite a few what we call black hat techniques. which historically were very successful. And what I mean by a black hat technique is something that kind of circumvents or goes against what Google intentionally wants to promote. So Google tells us on its own websites very clearly what it's looking for from search, and how it wants to prioritize those sites. And there are ways, and there have historically been ways, that people can kind of trick Google or try to trick Google. And I see this still happening. It's becoming less and less common, because it is becoming less and less effective. So Google is kind of onto a lot of these things. A couple of examples might be using your H1 tags and hiding them. So your H1 tag is, from an SEO perspective, is the single most important tag or heading that you would have on a website page. We use it for SEO purposes, which doesn't necessarily always line up with marketing slogans or marketing language that we want to use on a particular page. So in the past, people have had a blue background and have hidden a particular heading in the same color blue. So the heading is there technically, but you can't see it from an end user, from a human perspective. So Google has really clamped down on that and starts penalizing people who do stuff like that. So we really, really want to avoid anything where you might be either inadvertently or intentionally trying to trick Google. And there are lots of like dodgy link building methods that have been used and still are used. But more and more I see like Google is clamping down on these so-called black hat techniques. So yeah, there are lots and lots of bad examples. But like I say, if you focus on the really clear communication, anyone, not necessarily SEO expert or even digital marketing expert, can be successful with SEO. So make sure that the communication is really clear, make sure that your offering is really clear on your website. And if you've got a blog or archive of high quality content, make that work for you. So yeah, there's never a way. There's never a situation that you can't get out of. So if something has happened by accident that is kind of not doing you justice in terms of SEO, everything can always be unpicked, resurrected, put back together. And if you have a penalty on your site, there's no need to panic, because all of that is completely resolvable.
So that's good. We know that if we find that there's something that we haven't done right, that we can resolve it. And it's something that can get better with ongoing work. So don't worry if you have a mistake or you have encountered mistakes on your website when it comes to SEO. It's always a work in progress. I like that. So anything else, Claire, that we didn't touch on that would be important to keep in mind when it comes to getting more traffic from Google?
I suppose it might be worth saying something about the kind of businesses that benefit from SEO. Because I think there can be some confusion about what kind of businesses are really going to benefit from SEO. Like, for whom is this an absolute priority? And I would say there's two categories. There's, if you rely on a specific geographical area to attract your audience. So if you're like on a high street and you've got a storefront, and you want people who are not going to be walking past your shop window to still know about your business. Might be an auto body repair shop, or a med spa, or anything that you have a slightly wider geographical area. You don't want to just rely on footfall. Those are the kind of businesses where SEO really can come into its own. It can be so incredibly powerful. Because Google is really smart, and if somebody types in med spa near me, and you don't tell Google where you are, Google just knows because it's really smart and can point you in the direction of the nearest set of med spas or nearest set of auto body repair shops. So those are the kind of businesses that can really, really benefit and see a really noticeable tick in leads and also sales. But also businesses who have a wider reach. And I think your business is a really good example, because obviously the work that you do, Jenny, is remote. You can work with anyone, anywhere in the world, which is huge and super exciting. But there's also, for businesses like that, there's huge benefit to be had from leveraging leads that might come to your business from your local geographical area. So even if you don't necessarily want clients who are geographically local to you, and your focus is broader and you want more kind of international clients or who are further away, using those local SEO techniques can really drive a huge amount of authority and traffic to your business. And the great thing about that is once you're authoritative and once your website is authoritative and you have traffic and you have high value leads going into your website, Google attaches higher value to your business. And then if you try and reach out to other further flung areas, you automatically get a boost. So if Google sees you're very successful in one area, you can leverage that really hard and be like, well, in that case, I want some clients in Austin, Texas, and or wherever you wanted them to be. Then you can kind of leverage the power of that local authority to gain clients elsewhere. So yeah, so in my opinion, obviously I'm biased. There are lots and lots of businesses that can benefit from SEO that aren't necessarily taking advantage of it right now. I'm itching to help people. and also just unlock the knowledge, not even necessarily from a wanting to work with people kind of perspective. I just want people to understand and know that this option is available to you. You have the power to write blog articles, to put them on your website, to really demonstrate your deep knowledge and expertise, your absolute authority in your own area. And you don't have to undertake this huge SEO program if that's not what you're into. There's everyone can make the most of what SEO techniques are within their power. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is, because I believe a lot of people really feel that SEO is overwhelming. And it's a term that you hear all the time, but I feel like people don't truly understand what that means. And that there's a lot of education out there that doesn't necessarily align with what we should be doing now. And there's just a lot of information out there that sometimes we get overwhelmed and people just don't know how to take the next step. So I really appreciate you spending the time with us to educate us and share this information in bite-sized pieces so that we can all take those little steps to make progress. Like, it all compounds over time, like you said. I love your example that, even though I'm virtual and I can service anyone like all over the world, you mentioned that getting a little bit of that local SEO juice, it kind of just builds your authority there. And then you just kind of continue moving forward from there and see results over time. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us all this information about search engine optimization and what we can do to make Google like us a little bit more. So why don't you tell us how people can get in touch with you and how they could work with you if they are interested in having an extra hand on the SEO front?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Claire Ransom. I am the founder and CEO of Aloha Life Digital. It's a boutique SEO and content agency based in Boston. And yeah, if anyone is looking to get found in Google, become more visible in Google, that's exactly what I and my team specialize in. So our website is alohalifedigital.com. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, Claire_Ransom. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear from anyone and offer some advice or guidance on the best direction for your business with SEO.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire. I am going to put all of your links in the podcast show notes, and I'm also going to repurpose it and put it on my blog. It has some content there as well. And I will link it so that if anyone wants to get in touch, they can reach out below. And thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your knowledge on the SEO front.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really fun to talk to you. And yeah, I'm glad to kind of share a little bit about SEO, hopefully make it a little bit less overwhelming and a little bit more transparent.
Love that. Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Jenny.
And that was my conversation with Claire. I hope you learned some ways that you can kind of uplevel the website that you have. And Claire has an awesome resource. She has a template on how to outline a blog post to get as much SEO juice as possible. I'm going to link it in the show notes as well if you want to grab that. And I thank you so much for spending the time to listen to this interview. And I look forward to chatting with you in my next episode. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast all the way to the end. I really appreciate you being here. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it can help. If you like this episode, then I want to invite you to visit jennybdesigns.com, where you'll find videos and resources to help make your current website work even harder for you. And if you're feeling like your current website doesn't truly reflect you or your brand today, it's not attracting your ideal clients or making sales, or maybe you just feel embarrassed by it and it's holding your business back, then reach out. I'd love to help you design a website that truly reflects you, works for you 24/7, bringing in those ideal clients and making you money. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time for another new episode.